Welcome back to Spot On with Link Lauren. We have a jam-packed show, probably the most jam-packed show we've ever had. We have Zachary Levi coming on to talk about being a Trump supporter in Hollywood, being ostracized. What is it like being conservative in Hollywood and trying to make it in Tinseltown? We also have to talk about the ICE riots going on in Los Angeles. We're going to talk about Simone Biles. Apparently, she hates women, so that was a shock to us over the weekend. President Trump is at Camp David. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's doing trust falls, they're making lanyards, hiking in the woods, or maybe he's trying to bring world peace. But without further ado, let's dive right in. Well, just like clockwork, every single summer, these deranged leftists try and find something to go out and protest, all right? Maybe it's Palestine, maybe it's George Floyd, maybe it's Ukraine, maybe it's climate, maybe they want us to all be vegan and stop eating meat. I don't know. But this summer, they've decided they're going to take to the streets and fight back against ICE. Now, ICE is just doing their job. And if you look at the Department of Homeland Security, they have put out statements saying basically assaults against ICE agents have skyrocketed in the last few months. And these are people just trying to get illegal migrant criminals out of the country. If you break into the country and you're not contributing to society in any single way, I'm sorry, you have to go. It doesn't make us xenophobic. It doesn't make us racist. It makes us a country of laws. As even Bill Clinton said in the 90s, it makes us a nation of laws. But what we're seeing in California, and we have clips up on the screen, it's basically descended into anarchy. It looks like a third world country. And this is what happens. If you import a third world country, your streets are going to turn into a third world country. Isn't that interesting how it works? But Gavin Newsom, he does not like President Trump. He says he's going to sue the administration because President Trump did not coordinate with him. Well, thank God President Trump has the balls to say, you know what? If Gavin Newsom can't protect his own state, if Karen Bass can't protect her own city, the mayor of Los Angeles, that is where the federal government is going to step in and say, we are taking over. We are going to deploy the National Guard, a few thousand troops. That's not crazy in a big city like Los Angeles. They got to work in shifts. We're going to deploy the National Guard because what we are seeing is absolute insanity. And the folks on the left, they want to tell us these are peaceful protests. You have Kamala Harris. She said the protests were overwhelmingly peaceful. Kamala, you are even more of a bird brain idiot than I thought you were. The fact that you think these are peaceful protests, they're trying to light cop cars on fire. They're burning down buildings. They're throwing rocks. They're being agitated. This is not a peaceful protest in any way, shape, or form. Cory Booker also wants to call this a peaceful protest. And Cory Booker, you might remember from his 25-hour meltdown on the Senate floor because he's basically a theater queen. Well, Cory Booker, we have a clip of him. Let's hear what he had to say.
Reality is we see peaceful protests launching in Los Angeles. And again, any violence against police officers should not be accepted. Local authorities can handle that. But remember, a lot of these peaceful protests are being generated because the President of the United States is sowing chaos and confusion by arresting people who are showing up for their immigration hearings.
Now, Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut, we've talked about him before. He doesn't want to protect women. He's perfectly fine with men and women's sports. He came out this morning and he also said people are going to have to get up in other cities and fight back against ICE. So the left is telling us they want anarchy and they want a fight this summer. They have warm weather. The sun is out. It's shining. It's beautiful. Of course, these people don't protest in the winter, right? It's too cold. The bitter conditions. They don't want to get frostbite. So of course, they don't want to go out there and protest in the winter. But as soon as spring and summer comes around, they're out there ready to throw rocks and jump on cars. And what I find interesting is these folks are protesting saying they don't want to go back to Mexico, right? They've been in the country illegally for years. They don't want to go back to Mexico, but yet they're jumping on top of cars, waving a Mexican flag. Okay, so something is not adding up. But I also have to say this. These folks aren't working. They aren't contributing to society, but they're clearly able-bodied. You have people who are out here protesting, living off of welfare, who clearly could go to work and do a 9 to 5. They could work 40 hours a week. They seem to have the energy and the gumption and the wherewithal to sprint through the streets and do cartwheels over burning cars. But apparently they can't go to work. So that's what we're seeing in California. But we're also seeing is what happens when you let in millions of illegal migrants and hordes of young military-age fit men. And we had this discussion the last few years because of Joe Biden's failed open border policies, right? Joe Biden let in millions of people to the country. This seemed deliberate. He walked back all of the measures that were keeping the border stable that President Trump had put in place. That is what Joe Biden did. And now we're reaping the consequences and we're seeing the chaos throughout the streets. I would not be shocked, and I've heard from other people who say to expect this. This is probably going to spread like a wildfire to other major cities. We saw it with George Floyd. We've seen it with the pro-Palestine protest. People have nothing to do this summer. They clearly are unoccupied. They're going to go out here and protest in many other cities. And unfortunately, this is what's to come. So we also have a quote from Karen Bass, the wonderful mayor Karen Bass. We're just happy she's, not in Ghana like she was when the Palisades fire were burning her city to the ground. So she says, as mayor of a proud city of immigrants who contribute to our city in so many ways, I am deeply angered by what has taken place. These tactics sow terror in our communities and disrupt basic principles of safety in our city. My office is in close coordination with immigrant rights community organizations. We will not stand for this. Now, Newsom also echoed her sentiments, right? This is the talking point from the left, that Trump is ginning up this chaos. Trump is the one who's escalating the situation. Newsom called Trump's actions chaotic and reckless. Let me tell you, if Newsom could do his job in any way, shape, or form, Trump wouldn't have to step in. Do you think Trump wants to be dealing with this right now? No, he doesn't want to have to step in and save California and save Los Angeles. But because Gavin Newsom is an abject failure and he's busy worrying about his hair gel and his teeth whitening strips, he's not taking care of his people. So that's who Gavin Newsom is. President Trump, I would imagine he doesn't want to send in the National Guard anywhere. He wants California to get its stuff together. And the last thing I will say is this, and we'll be covering the ICE raids and the riots because unfortunately the situation seems to be escalating. But what I will say is this. If Gavin Newsom thinks he is going to run for president in 2028, these pictures of Los Angeles burning to the ground, people overtaking freeways and burning cars, these photos will haunt him. If Kamala Harris wants to put down the Jose Cuervo and run for president again in 2028 as well, these pictures are going to haunt her. And her statements saying that the protests were overwhelmingly peaceful, well, that's anathema and antithetical to what we are seeing with our own eyes with the billowing smoke, right? Republicans have ads for the midterms in 2028, all because of the pictures and the videos coming out of California the last few days. The only thing I'm shocked I haven't seen are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle going and handing out water bottles and supplies to the protesters and the rioters, because as we know from the Palisades fire, Harry and Meghan are disaster tourists, right? I'm surprised they don't have paparazzi and a camera crew in tow going and checking out the riots. Mark my words, we might see this in 48 hours because Harry and Meghan, they never miss an opportunity to make something about themselves. So they might come down from Montecito in their beautiful McMansion with all of their nannies and their staff to hand out supplies to the rioters. I wouldn't be shocked if we see this. So Harry and Meghan, we wish you well. Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, get your shit together, please. You don't need people out in the street burning cars, running amok, causing chaos. And I want to add this. Whenever I say this is my last thing, it's never my last thing. I want to add this. There are incredible people who live in California. They're amazing conservatives, independents, libertarians, Democrats who don't want to see their city burn. They are sick of the BS as well. But unfortunately, the left has decided to capitulate and succumb to the small, aggressive, violent minority in their party that wants chaos and anarchy and for America to look like a third world country. So the left, Gavin Newsom, and all of these Democratic elites, they continue to capitulate to the small, loud, vocal minority. And if they do that, they have no prayer in the midterms in 2028. But it's time to move on to Simone Biles and Riley Gaines. Well, every day, the folks on the left tell us this barely happens. Men and women's sports, this is a rare occurrence, once in a blue moon. But how come every time I turn on the news or I check my phone, there's another medal being taken because a man has infiltrated a woman's sports team? And that's what happened recently. We have the information right here. So a few days ago, Marissa Rothenberger, who is a 6-foot-tall male playing high school softball, helped steal the Minnesota State Championship from real women. Now, Riley Gaines, who's been an advocate of getting men out of women's sports for years, she decided to speak up and say something, as she should, as all of us should, because this is wrong. Anytime a man comes in and takes a medal, a gold trophy, a scholarship from a young girl who has worked and trained for years, and that's what we've seen. So Riley Gaines, she spoke up. Well, Simone Biles, who you might remember from the Olympics, she has a million gold medals. She is incredibly talented. No one is taking that away from her. Simone Biles is a legend in the Olympics, gymnastics, world. Well, she decided to clap back at Riley Gaines. I guess Simone Biles thinks it's fine having men in women's sports. Here's what Simone Biles actually said. We're going to put it up on the screen. She said, Riley Gaines, you're truly sick. All of this campaigning because you lost a race, straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender category in all sports, but instead you bully them. One thing's for sure is no one in sports is safe with you around. So then she also went on to attack Riley Gaines' physical appearance. She said, go bully someone your own size, which would ironically be a male. Simone Biles, you just erased your entire legend status. Like Taylor Swift coming out and endorsing Kamala Harris, you were on the wrong side of history on this issue. Simone Biles, you are definitely on the wrong side of history. How can you be okay now in 2025 with men overtaking women's sports, and then you have the audacity to bully another woman for her physical appearance when you yourself have talked about being insecure and I have anxiety, I'm so insecure about the way I look. That's you, Simone Biles, but you have no problem dishing it out, but you can't take it, and we have that as well. So in 2018, Simone Biles revealed she wore sweaters or jackets all year long due to being bullied for her muscles, and she talked about the toxic culture of trolling. Oh, the toxic culture where she's making millions of dollars and counting gold medals from the Olympics. That is Simone Biles. Simone Biles, you're full of shit. You can't protect women. You're an embarrassment. And nobody wants to come out and tell you. None of your teammates want to come out and tell you they don't want men in women's sports either. Okay. You look like a clown for saying you want men in women's sports. And you also look like a clown for going to the physical and personal. Anytime you're in an argument and you immediately go to the physical appearance, you've lost. You've lost the argument. Anytime you're having a nuanced conversation about a serious issue in our country and you say, go bully someone your own size, which would be a man, and you try and attack the way someone else looks, you've lost the argument. You look like a petty little bitch. And Simone Biles, you're an embarrassment. We all loved you. We all revered you. You were an American icon. We're going to forget about that time that you choked and ran out crying. We're going to forget about that. You're an icon. You're a legend. You have all these gold medals. But for some reason, you can't protect women. And what's also interesting is Simone Biles and so many other female athletes were abused by Larry Nassar, who was a physician from Michigan State, I believe. He was, I believe, the physician for the Olympics. Y'all, sports is not my forte. But Larry Nassar, he's now in prison for abusing women. And Simone Biles spoke about this. So she clearly doesn't want men that deep and involved in women's sports and in women's locker rooms. But now the woke mind virus has taken over. And we actually found a clip of Simone speaking to my boss, Megyn Kelly, about this very issue. Let's take a look at the clip and then discuss.
Nobody wants their daughter or just even as an individual to have that happen to them. So it feels like he took a part of me that I can't get back. So I'm still working on that part. So it's very hard.
Mm-hmm. I know you said for a time you blamed yourself, but you said, I know now it is not my fault.
Yes.
It's not my fault.
It is not your fault because some of them, it's called a grooming process. And I think that's what he did. So the main part that he took away from me that I'll never get back is trust. And so I think it's very hard for me to trust some other people. And I find myself even walking down the street or being in places, I'm just very scared.
So she doesn't want men in women's locker rooms. She knows what can happen when you have men close to these young girls in private conditions and vulnerable positions. Simone Biles knows this. She has talked about this for years, but she thinks it's perfectly fine for men to come in, take medals, scholarships from other young women. That's who Simone Biles is. Nobody saw this coming in a million years. But when you're chronically online and you have little Twitter fingers all day long, that's who you are, and the woke mind virus seeps in. Now, Simone Biles, Miss Hypocrisy, in 2017, we found an old post. My team, there's nothing that gets past us. We found an old post from 2017 where Simone Biles said, good thing guys don't compete against girls or he'd take all the gold medals. Now, I'm not sure exactly who she was speaking about, but she said right there, good thing guys don't compete against girls because they take all the gold medals. So that was her in 2017. We've got 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Somehow, in the last many years, she has decided she's actually perfectly fine with having men in women's sports, and she's going to be the defender and savior of all the trans athletes. And I have to say, she made a decent point in her initial post. Why don't we start our own league for trans athletes. You know what I'm saying? Y'all go have fun. Y'all go do your thing. Y'all go rock it and have a good time and compete against each other and braid each other's hair. I don't care. Go start your own league for trans athletes. But Simone Biles, you really look like a joke. You've shattered a huge portion of your legacy. Maybe you can actually sit down on a podcast and have a conversation with Riley Gaines. I think that could be interesting to see two young women, two female athletes come together and discuss this nuanced issue. I personally don't think the issue is that nuanced. It's probably a 95-5 issue if you really want to ask Americans. Everyone knows men should not be in women's sports, but Simone Biles, she's choosing this as her hill to die on. So Simone Biles, we wish you well. We don't know what's going to happen with your legacy. It's unfortunate that you went out on a limb and decided to push for men and women's sports, and then you attacked another woman for her appearance after crying for years over the way you were discussed in the public eye because of your shoulders and your muscles. So you're a hypocrite, Simone, but we have to move on. And now we have to talk about President Trump, who just spent the last night at Camp David, a place he is not that fond of. Now, he says he's meeting with military generals. We don't know what the Trump team is working on at Camp David. They might be bringing world peace. They might be doing trust falls. They might be making lanyards and braiding each other's hair. They might be deciding, you know what, we're finally going to get rid of daylight saving times because it's confusing as hell. We don't know exactly why the Trump team is at Camp David, but one thing we do know for certain is that President Trump is miserable. Okay, President Trump likes to stay in properties that have his name on them. Okay, he has beautiful, gorgeous, stunning properties across the world. He's got Mar-a-Lago, he's got Bedminster, he's got Trump Tower, he's got golf courses, I believe, in Ireland. They might even be doing a Trump Middle East. I can't wait to go visit and have a good time. President Trump likes to stay in his luxurious, nice properties. He is notorious for flying home all through the night. He will get on Air Force One in the middle of the night and fly home to get 30 minutes of sleep in his own bed. But he's currently at Camp David. Now, for those of you who don't know what Camp David is, it's been used by many presidents in the past, going back to FDR, and the presidents stay in what's called Aspen Lodge. So this has been occupied by every single president. It has several rooms, a small office, several fireplaces, a kitchen, a large outdoor flagstone patio. Ooh. There's also a heated swimming pool, hot tub, and a single golf hole with multiple tees. That's not enough. I'm sorry, that's not enough for President Trump. I know this man is counting down the minutes till he can leave Camp David. President Trump does not want to be at Camp David. It's in the woods, it's in Maryland. He's like, why am I here? There better be something important going on at Camp David. If I find out they're playing Scrabble and Mahjong and listening to frickin', I don't know, YMCA by the Village People, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be upset. And you know what? President Trump's going to be upset too. I also wouldn't be shocked if they changed the name from Camp David to Camp Trump. You know what I'm saying? By the time President Trump leaves Camp David, it's probably going to have a gold sign that says Camp Trump, because the man is a builder and that's who he is, right? I want to see a fixer-upper show where President Trump goes around and renovates these properties, okay? We need a fixer-upper show where President Trump comes in and he remakes and renovates Camp David. He's already renovating the White House ballroom. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to do the walk to see and feel footloose and fancy free and do a two-step in the new ballroom when it's open, and I can't wait to come see it. President Trump, we need him to come in and redo Camp David. I know President Trump is hating Camp David, okay? He's going to hate the sheets on the bed. They're not 1,000 thread count Egyptian cotton. He's going to hate the toilet paper. He's going to hate the soap. He's going to hate the rundown, dilapidated, antiquated furniture and fabrics. Do they have a Diet Coke button at Camp David? Probably not. And I also have to say this about President Trump. His team is full of gorgeous glamazons, okay? Every single woman who works on Team Trump is stunning and gorgeous and statuesque. Are they supposed to be traipsing around Camp David in their gorgeous Chanel ballet flats, stepping over squirrels and raccoons and worms? No, this should not be what's happening right now. I can tell you President Trump is not having fun. We have a quote, actually, from President Trump from 2017. Here's what President Trump had to say about Camp David. So he said, yeah, Camp David is very rustic. It's nice. You'd like it. You know how long you'd like it? For about 30 minutes. So President Trump, he's already telling us He hates Camp David. This is literally President Trump's version of Survivor. This is like Trump Survivor. He has to spend a night at Camp David without the amenities he enjoys at Mar-a-Lago. I don't even think President Trump loves sleeping over at the White House residence because, let's be honest, it's a step down from his own properties. But this is Trump Survivor. It's like, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, meets Naked and Afraid, meets that show Lost on ABC. That is what President Trump is going through right now. I wouldn't be surprised if President Trump slept on top of the sheets. You know, like when you're in a bad hotel, you sleep on top of the sheets and try not to get bed bugs. And everybody keeps saying, oh, I hope there's a fly on the wall at Camp David. I want to know what they're talking about. I'm here to tell you, there are probably plenty of flies on the wall and cobwebs and spiders all over. So Camp David is maybe a step above glamping. It might be a step above glamping. President Trump is not someone who's probably having a good time. This is a New York, Palm Beach guy, and he has told us on record that he hates Camp David. And I also have to say, you know, President Trump, he has his human printer with him, Natalie. She's incredible. We've seen her in the documentaries. Natalie, how is she supposed to use the human printer? Is she supposed to have a long extension cord running through the woods and the mountains? How are they supposed to survive at Camp David? Team Trump is too glamorous to be spending the night roughing it at Camp David in these dilapidated cabins. Team Trump can't be doing this. Look at Caroline Leavitt, stunning. What are they supposed to do? Walk around in stilettos at Camp David? No, 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 no. I also am concerned, if you plug in a hairdryer at Camp David, does the power just go out? Do you trip the circuit? I don't know what's happening, but they need to redo Camp David. I also have to say, Kamala Harris, she and Biden did not use Camp David much either. I heard that they were maybe going to use Camp David to do an intervention for Kamala Harris. Like, Kamala, we're bringing you to Camp David. We're going to let you detox and dry out for 21 days. We're going to leave you here at Camp David. That's what they should use Camp David for, giving Kamala Harris her intervention. Let's turn it into a rehab center. She'll think she's at Cliffside, Malibu, just with a lot more dirt and trees and ticks. That's what Kamala Harris can do. She can go to Camp David and do a whole rehabilitation stay. The only thing about Kamala Harris is I know she'd be waking up throughout the night going, where's David? Where the hell is David? So Team Trump, we hope you had a good time at Camp David. I can't wait to hear what unfolded. Like I said, maybe we'll have world peace. Maybe we'll have the ending of daylight savings time. We don't know. But one thing we do know for certain, Trump hates it. So I want to see Trump redo Camp David. Let's get high-speed internet. Let's get some new furniture. Let's get a kitchen that's updated. Let's get sheets that aren't worn out and tired and rough. That is what we need for Camp David. But if there is any administration that does not need to be roughing it in the woods, it is Team Trump. So we wish you well. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you do a tick check when you get home tonight, okay? Make sure to burn your clothes, put them in the dryer at maximum heat, and President Trump will be so happy to return back to the White House soon. This episode is brought to you by Masa Chips. Did you know that chips and fries used to be cooked in tallow up until the 1990s when big corporations switched to cheap, processed seed oils? But today, seed oils make up 20% of the average American's daily calories. And recent studies have linked seed oils to metabolic health issues and inflammation in the body. Masa decided to do something about it. They created a tasty and delicious tortilla chip with just 3 ingredients and no seed oils. Just organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. These chips don't only avoid all the bad stuff, they taste incredible too. Masa is crunchier, tastier, and sturdier than other chips. They don't break in your guac. Snacking on Masa chips is nothing like eating regular chips. With Masa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic with no crash, bloat, or gross sluggish feeling afterwards. And an added bonus, the beef tallow makes the chips much more satiating, so you won't find yourself uncontrollably binging and still feeling hungry afterwards. Masa Chips is beloved by tens of thousands of customers and has been endorsed by industry-leading health and nutrition experts like Ben Greenfield and Gary Brecka. Ready to give Masa a try? Go to masachips.com/link and use the code LINK for 25% off your first order. That's masachips.com/link, code LINK for 25% off your first order. Now, I could not be more excited to bring in this next guest. We're kind of brothers in Maha, except that we've never met before. I can't wait to bring in actor and Wildwood Studio founder Zachary Levi. You might know him from the show Chuck. You might know him from the Shazam movies. They were huge hits. They made hundreds of millions of dollars. I personally haven't seen them, but I know a ton of you love them. He was also on Megyn Kelly's show a few months ago. Without further ado, let's bring in Zachary Levi.
Hey, Link, good morning.
Hey, how are you doing? I can't believe we haven't met because I worked on the Kennedy campaign and I remember you were going to host a boat cruise fundraiser. Do you remember this? You were going to do a boat fundraiser?
I do. Yeah. I was excited about it too. I mean, listen, I wanted Bobby to be president so bad,
Right.
and I know many of us did. But obviously that's not how everything worked out. And so that's ultimately, the boat cruise was all kind of, part and parcel of that. But I'm very grateful that regardless of how things all, came about, Bobby is where he's at now and he's doing the work that he's doing, and very proud of him, very proud of the team that he's assembled. And maybe one day we'll get that boat cruise. Who knows?
No, exactly. It was for the people who don't know. Maybe we can find the flyer. It's going to be like you, Drea from Sopranos, Meta World Peace, some other people. And I think it was God's plan for that boat cruise not to happen. Bobby ended up endorsing Trump last August in Arizona, and the cruise did not end up happening. But you going out on a limb and saying, I'm going to vote for President Trump because of the coalition he's building was really kind of shocking in Hollywood because everybody's scared to come out of the closet and say they voted for Trump. Isn't this a theme you've noticed?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's an unfortunate theme that's been in Hollywood for a long time because Hollywood is traditionally a much more liberal industry and town. And listen, I have lots of friends that are of that ilk, and that's where they lean. And I have loved them regardless. I believe that we're all supposed to be able to hold the values that we hold and vote accordingly. So yeah, it definitely was a pretty massive coming out party, as it were, a political coming out party. But to me, the stakes could not have been higher. We had, unfortunately, every single election, we're left with two options. And oftentimes of those two options, you're having to eat the chicken and spit out the bones. You're having to look at a candidate and say, like, okay, which one of these two candidates, even though I might have issues with either or both of them, which one of them still represents or is at least, talking about implementing policies that are most in line with what I believe are necessary for where we're at as a country. And in this moment, particularly when it came to things like our borders, things that we're still, even now with, with what's going on with ICE and in Los Angeles, which is absolute friggin' chaos. And I know we want to talk about that too. That is an existential threat to our democracy, to our freedom, to our jobs, to everything else. And I do think that, it comes down to triage. It's one of the things that I learned early as a child. I think it was like in elementary school, and we had some, EMT or somebody come to school and they would tell you about triage. It's like, hey, if there's an accident, you got to find the people that are, there's going to be people that are just a little bit injured, and there's people that are moderately injured, and there's people that are really injured, and you got to focus on the big injuries and then work your way down. And so when it came to the policies that both candidates were talking about, or, I don't know that Kamala was even really talking about a lot of policies, that, most of what the Democratic platform was based on was just hating Trump, which in and of itself, I was like, hey, give me something of substance so I know what it is that you want to do, or that you want to implement. And I don't think most of us got that. And I've made it very clear that, I didn't vote for Trump the first two times he ran. In fact, I voted third party both those times because I was very disheartened with the options that we had. But I do believe that, a few things happened. The miracle in Butler, Trump moving his head just ever so slightly and avoiding getting assassinated, which is insane. And I think in that moment, there was a humility that he experienced that he had yet to that point in his life ever experienced. And that is an important thing, particularly for somebody like him, and particularly for someone who's going to be the president of the United States. And when that happened, we know now, obviously, Callie Means was a huge part of connecting those two, Bobby and Trump, The Democrats were doing everything they could to make sure that Bobby had no chance of ever getting anywhere in that election, which was also criminal. The fact that they didn't hold a primary was criminal. And so for Bobby and Trump to connect, for them to really see that, hey, listen, a coalition could be very powerful, could really help all the movements, MAGA, Maha, all of it. And again, as you said, we were very much in the Maha camp. And, and I care about that. We care about that. Like, to me, that's one of the biggest parts of the triage. Yes, we can talk about lots of different groups or, groupings of people that had issue with this or that, but it affected, let's say, that group of people. Our health and wellness is everybody. How our food is being grown and processed and delivered to us, how the pharmaceutical industries are completely out of control. This is affecting every single American. It's not just this little group or that little group. It's everybody. And it's our children and it's our children's children. I mean, this is genetics. So I was like, this is a no-brainer to me. And so ultimately, I became friends with Tulsi Gabbard, who's a wonderful human being. And Tulsi, I was explaining, listen, I love what you're doing. I love what Bobby's doing. I think that if you guys are really genuinely doing what you need to do to vet Donald Trump and make sure that he means what he says, because I didn't know Donald Trump, and they did. And I asked both Bobby and Tulsi when they asked me to go and moderate their town hall leading up to the election. I said, I need you to tell me, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this isn't just some political play. This isn't just some, whatever, but you believe with everything in you that he means what he says, that we're going to actually get some effective change and good positive change. And that he's a man of his word in that regard. And they both said, yes, we really genuinely believe that. And that's why we're doing this. Two former Democrats who completely, I mean, that says volumes, really says volumes.
Absolutely.
And so I said, okay, I didn't vote for that guy the last two times, but if you are telling me that he means it and you're all in on what this is, then I will be all in on that. And I will cross this Rubicon, and I will suffer whatever slings and arrows are going to come my way. And there have been, but I knew that was going to happen, and I didn't do it, without a lot of thought and a lot of prayer and a lot of weighing out what those consequences would be. And, I've always been very disheartened with my industry anyway. I think that it's been broken for a really, really, really long time. And that's why I have felt compelled to create a new system, a new ecosystem, a new studio that is Wildwood Studios. By the way, if anybody is interested, you can go to Wildwood Austin. By the way, it's Wildwood, WYLDWOOD, Austin.com. And please let us know if you're interested in investing and helping this vision. But the vision is genuinely to take back our entertainment industry, to create a place that's safe for all artists, where you don't have to toe this woke agendaed line, where you can speak your truth, and whatever that truth is. This isn't a conservative studio. It's not it's just trying to be I'm a libertarian. I'm just trying to create a place where people can be themselves and speak truth and have common sense and reason and actually make content that's uplifting, that's redeeming, and more than that. One of the things that I weighed in my decision to go and support Trump, and knowing that there could be some jobs that I might lose, was that I could see the writing on the wall when it comes to AI. AI is coming at us like a freight train. And it's not just my industry, it's everybody's industries. And so we need to be very, very, very cognizant of this and very mindful about how we are going to be implementing it. I don't think that AI in a vacuum is an evil thing, but how humans will decide to use AI and the massive amounts of unemployment that's going to come from that, including in my industry. And so I thought to myself, well, what am I really afraid of here? I'm afraid that I'm not going to get hired for jobs that aren't even going to exist in a few years, because the studios, knowing the way that they operate, knowing how most industry operates, they're all about bottom line. They're all about margins. We want to make more money so that our shareholders are happy, so our CEOs have better salaries. I mean, that's how it all works, and just wringing out the working class so that they can make more and more profit. And so once AI becomes the shiny new tool that they can use in order to just keep making more money and unemploying more and more people like myself, regardless of our political beliefs, to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. It's like, all right, I got to go all in. I got to make sure that I can do what, not just my own vote, but I have to go and try, if I can, to reason with people and say, I understand your aversion to Trump. I understand he can be brash and cocky and arrogant and all of those things, the Trumpiness of Trump. I get it. I'm not a fan of that stuff either. But the guy, at the very least, he's not a career politician. He's a wild card. He's somebody that isn't captured because he hasn't been in that system like a Joe Biden had for 50 plus years and like Kamala had been. And so, but with that, and then also this incredible coalition that he put together with JD and Bobby and Tulsi and his now former, maybe, I don't know, friend Elon Musk, but still all of that, and Vivek and all of it. I was like, that is something I can get behind. But the Democratic Party was not offering anything close to that. So I had to go fight for it.
No, absolutely. I think what happened in this election was people said, we're tired of being put in silos of Democrat, Republican, Independent. We just want common sense. And I think because of people like Bobby and Tulsi and these former Democrats coming over, that is what helped President Trump win the election. We don't know. We could slice and dice the information and the data anyway, but there were a ton of California women who were typically like granola, crunchy moms who were passionate about their kids' health, who said, you know what, if Bobby's going in there and he's going to try to fix the chronic disease epidemic, we're going to pull the lever for Trump. But you mentioned something about career politicians like Biden and Kamala and Newsom. All over the news right now, we're seeing the ICE raids in Los Angeles. You live in Los Angeles. What do you make of Karen Bass, Gavin Newsom, and these leftist failures we're seeing? Because no major city should allow people to run amok and burn cars and take over freeways, Zach.
Yeah. Well, so fortunately, I actually don't live in Los Angeles anymore. I am, So I grew up in Ventura, California, which is about an hour. Well, now with traffic, it's about an hour and a half north of LA. And I'm here now. I just welcomed my son into the world out here because my family's still all here. So thank you. I appreciate that. But listen, I lived in LA for 15 years, and obviously I still frequent it and have a lot of friends there, and there's still business to do in Los Angeles. But even as a native Californian who loves California, I saw the writing on the wall a really long time ago. Because when you have leadership in states like California and cities like Los Angeles, who ultimately I don't think really care about the people, their constituents. They care about the power that they can hold and wield and the money that can be made through their position, which is exactly what's gone down. And this has happened in California and New York and Illinois, Chicago. I mean, if you just look at the cities that have the highest crime rates, the highest level of homelessness, the most insanity going on, these are typically democratically held states and cities. Now, this is not an indictment of the everyday voting Democrat, right? Like, I think this is one of the problems that we're running into, is that we have all been pitted against each other, the voters, the people, and we have got to stop doing that. I don't have a problem with Democratic voters. I have a problem with Democratic leadership who actually, I think, doesn't even care about their voters. And what's happening in Los Angeles right now is absolute insanity. We have millions of illegal immigrants who illegally came here. Okay. Now, I have a lot of empathy for a lot of those folks. I understand that many of those people are not serial rapists and murderers and wrong evildoers. They're people that were genuinely looking for a better life. And yet there is a legal way, a proper way, a fair way for them to come into this country and assimilate into this country. Because if you want all of the benefits of the United States, and yet you hate the United States, and you go and you wave your nationals, a lot of people are in LA right now waving these like Viva la Mexico flags. Listen, I love Mexico. My brother-in-law is Mexican. I love him. I love his family. I have lots of Mexican friends. But if you want to go, could you imagine if, as Americans, we were going into Mexico and taking advantage of illegally going there and taking advantage of all that they have to offer, and then trying to burn down Mexico City, waving American flags? We'd be shot in the streets dead, not with rubber bullets, not with tear gas. Like, that would be, and we would never do that, because that would not be respecting that country. So I find it really not just fascinating, but really sad that a lot of these folks don't understand that. You cannot go and want all of the benefits of that country and despise it. Like that doesn't work. And so what's now happening, Karen Bass, for her to encourage people, literally encourage people to interfere with what ICE is trying to do, which, and let me be clear about this. I think that we must find a better balance. Same thing with, with Doge, with ICE, with any of it, right? We need to be able to do it as effectively and as surgically as possible. Are there people who are being detained and deported that might actually, like there are few, but very few cases of people who actually are here legally and they got looped into the whole thing and they got taken out, and those people should not be dealing with that. They should not be being detained. But that's very few people in a much larger group, and that larger group of illegal immigrants, lots and lots of them are in fact criminals that have come here, not just criminals because they came here illegally, but have a criminal past and record and continue to do crime in this country, including, as you know, there are multiple myriad cases of murders, rapes and murders that have happened in this country. And I don't see a lot of these protesters showing up and being like, hey, wow, we should be upset about that too. It's like they don't even care. It's like, well, that's just what happens. It's like, that's just what happens? No, that's not what happens. And as Americans, we should not be tolerating this at all.
No, absolutely. People don't want another Laken Riley, another Jocelyn Ngari, right? And if we hadn't had the failed open border policies the last few years, if people have had to come in and get vetted, we wouldn't have criminals and rapists running amok on the streets right now. And people voted for President Trump because he was talking about doing deportations. President Trump ran on mass deportations. The New York Times had a poll. A majority of Americans supported mass deportations. I know we're not supposed to say that out loud. So what we're seeing is a president who's actually following through on what he said he was going to do. And I think that's making Democrats' minds go crazy. So it doesn't sound like you think Gavin Newsom has a prayer in 2028, because these are the best campaign ads for Republicans. These pictures and these videos. Do you think Gavin has a chance, Zach?
Brother, I don't know. I mean, listen, I mean, the rational, logical mind in me would say absolutely not. No. But how is he in office right now? How did he not? How did he not get when they when they
the fire hydrants?
No. Well, yes, all of that for sure. But no, when they when they recalled him, how did and I've heard some weird things about maybe there was some screwy things going on with some of that and the voting and whatever. I don't know. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But listen, unfortunately, as this weird duopoly that we live in, and one that we should not be living in. I think that we should have a far different system of political system where we have more options. Some people say ranked choice. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we could be talking about, but we've all been pitted against each other so badly. And so Democratic voters, even when they're looking at somebody like Gavin Newsom, they go, yeah, well, but at least he's our guy, even though he's failed over and over and over again, even though Karen Bass has failed over and over and over again. It's so obvious when Gavin Newsom is going and, telling everybody in California, you got to stay in your home and you got to mask up and you got to go put these vaccines in you. Never mind that I'm going to go have my private parties at French Laundry and have dinners. And then he gets caught and he's like, he's making all these excuses. They tell us what we should do and then they don't even live by their own rules. That's the man that these voters put into office. One would hope that would have been the end of it. But no, because the propaganda is real. It's big, man. And they have so much money to put into commercials and they will do everything they can to keep twisting people's minds. I hope that voters in California do not forget every single failure that this administration has put them through. And it's been many, many failures. And this is just the most recent of them. But of course, there's going to be a lot of voters that think right now that what's going on is actually good. It's good that we are intercepting ICE and making sure that they're not deporting these good people, that even if they came here illegally, they're still good people and we need to treat them with dignity. Listen, as somebody who believes that we're all children of God, I actually agree that we should all be treated with some amount of dignity, right? but you're also dealing with full-on criminals. You can't just be like, oh, it's all well. Let's just talk. Let's just see if they're going to change their ways, and maybe they're going to be good, people that are putting back into our community. You can't reason with people like that on that level. But I will also say, even if this wasn't a matter of actual criminals and murderers and rapists and all that stuff, one of the most insidious things that has gone on is we have actual American citizens in places like Western North Carolina, for example, that were devastated. People in Lahaina, Hawaii, devastated. Every single time, Americans, not illegal immigrants to America, but actual Americans who have grown up their entire life in the United States, paying taxes their entire life, are left with a check for $700. And yet USAID and all of these other little Machiavellian little, agencies and what are taking our tax dollars and putting these immigrants into hotels and giving them debit cards and cell phones and traveling them around the country on our dime while we are leaving our own citizens hanging out to dry. That is insanity. So these are the things that we have to remember when it comes to when we're doing these Doge cuts and these USAID cuts. And when we're also trying to ask ourselves, well, how does this work with illegal immigration? Like, that can't be the way. We have got to take care of, we must. And if you were to ask any Democratic voter, if you were to just, bring it down to the most localized level and say, okay, let me ask you a question. It's your own home. Just forget about the country, for example, but the country is all of our home, right? But let's talk about just your home. Would you want anyone, particularly people that have a criminal record, to just have carte blanche access to your home, to just be able to move in whenever they want? Of course, they would say, absolutely not. I don't want that. Well, now just expand that out, because that's what's going on. If you don't treat this country as if it's just a larger version of what you are trying to protect in your own life, then really what you're saying is, well, it's good for thee, but not for me. I've seen these like kind of viral comedy videos where people go knocking on doors and they go, hey, we have a petition for, these illegal immigrants and they want to be able to be in our country. And they go, oh yeah, I'll sign that. They go, great. Well, we got 10 of them right here. Can they move in? And they go, no, we can't. And they don't know what to do because they're more than willing to pass the buck. If you're not willing to do it yourself, then don't expect everyone else in this country to be footing the bill for that. That's just not acceptable.
Well, that's what was happening with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. All these Democrats and especially Senator Chris Van Hollen, we have to bring him back. What's happening is wrong. We have to keep these criminal MS-13 gang members on the street. Mark my words, all of these elite Democrats sitting around in their fancy homes, they do not want MS-13 moving in next door. They wouldn't want their apartment complex being taken over by illegal migrants, but it's the rules for thee, not for me. They want to sit in their ivory towers and preach and proselytize to all of us how we should live and what we should be okay with. And Americans have said enough. So everything you have said, Zach, is music to our ears and what we talk about all the time. I was thinking, is Gavin Newsom at French Laundry last night? Because nobody was hearing from him or seeing him, and he's pretty much MIA, missing in action, Zach. But we could not be more grateful to have you. We will not keep you any longer. I couldn't be more excited for Wildwood Studios also because I'm from Dallas. I love seeing Dr. Phil come into Texas and so many people building complexes. Maybe you guys should connect. Are there any stories or movies that you're building now or any stories you want to tell with Wildwood Studios that you can sort of give us a precursor to, or where are we going with this?
I mean, man, it's so many. I mean, the reality is we'll have stories forever, right? Like there are so many great ideas. There's so many scripts that I read and projects that I am a part of currently and developing for future. But the most important thing is that we must build the arc. Like, and that's really what this is. Like, I have to build a place that is safeguarding human art and entertainment, certified organic, free range artists. Like that's what's this about. Because we could keep developing more stories. That's not a problem. But if we don't actually have the place to hold the line, then those jobs are all gone, right? So I could talk for hours about some new movies or TV shows or video games or music, things that I have a passion about creating. But I would say that the through line for all of it is just making sure that it's all stuff that's actually entertaining, that's actually excellent. The vast majority of the leadership in Hollywood for far too long has not only not valued the artists, right? And that's very obvious because they don't that they love to screw with the creative process and take the lion's share of the money and then leave whatever is left over for the rest of the cast and the crew. But also, the vast majority of the leadership in Hollywood hasn't cared about excellence, which means they don't care about the audience. If they really cared about the audience, then they would have processes where they really refine these movies, first through the writing process, then through the shooting process, and then through the editing process. But instead, what they do is they say, well, we're targeting to release this movie, whatever, big movie X, a Star Wars movie. They go, we know we're going to release this in October of this year. And then they go, well, we must release it then. So that means regardless of what form it's in, we have to release it at that point. And we'll fix it in post. We'll market it really well. And by the way, and it's Star Wars. So, the IP is so strong that people will watch it anyway. Well, then you have a lot of Star Wars fans, myself included, who want to go to these movies and want to love the movies. But then you see them and you go, what happened? What happened between now and then that they didn't understand even who their audience is, that this is what's come out of it, right? So it's a matter of getting all of that nonsense out of there, getting the power and back in the artist's hands so that because we don't need a lot of these executives, man. It's a lot of middle management, just gatekeepers. And that's not necessary. Plenty of writers, directors, producers, actors, crew, department heads are very capable of telling these stories without a whole bunch of undue influence that's coming in. And sorry, to tangent back, just one thing you were saying, and just to me, what was an incredible example of rules for thee and not for me. But even though they weren't even MS-13 gang members, in Martha's Vineyard was a perfect example of, let everybody else handle this. But Martha's Vineyard had illegal immigrants that were being sheltered in Martha's Vineyard. And those folks lasted like 2 weeks. And then everybody in Martha's Vineyard was like, no, they can't be here. Oh, it's Martha's Vineyard. And we don't want these people here. That is a perfect example of the elite class, because only the elite live in Martha's Vineyard. This is not like, and for them to just dispose of those people and yet still wanting to champion them is a perfect example of this nonsense. So anyway, there's so much that we need to take care of. But as an actor, as somebody who really cares about other actors and artists of all ilk, and knowing where AI is going, and knowing that this is also a perfect opportunity as Hollywood is imploding and burning, that this is a great moment for us to really take that power back and to really truly value the artists again, if not for the first time, and really truly value the audience and make sure that we are doing everything we can to just make excellent content. And that could be excellent stories. They could be more liberally leaning or conservative leaning, like as long as they're not agendaed. I don't want, like, in the same way that people are like, I don't want to go watch that like hardcore Bible thumping Christian movie. I agree. I don't want to watch that movie. I'm a deeply spiritual person, but I don't like it when people are just like infusing agenda into something and trying to preach to you about something. And the same has been happening in Hollywood for far too long when it comes to more woke liberal agenda. It's like you want to go see a movie and the next thing you know, you're getting lectured about somebody's pronouns within the movie. I'm like, what are we doing? That is totally unnecessary, completely unnecessary.
No, we could sit and talk for hours. We have to have you come back on because there's so many shows I've seen recently, especially on Netflix. They somehow have checked every single box of like trans, non-binary, this, that. Like they somehow they have pronouns I haven't even heard of. And I'm a gay guy who's Gen Z and went to NYU. I'm like, how have I never heard of this? But Zach, you mentioned Star Wars. May the Force be with you. I am so excited. I think maybe you should run for office someday. But thank you so much for coming on, and congratulations. And we wish you love and health with your new baby boy. So thank you.
Thank you, Link. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for all that you're doing and everything you're fighting for. Let's keep that fight going. We'll see you all soon.
Awesome. See you soon. Let me tell you a story about a guy named Leo Grillo. While on a road trip, Leo came across a Doberman. This dog was severely underweight and clearly in trouble. Leo rescued that Doberman and named him Delta. Sadly, Delta was just one of many animals that needed help, which inspired Leo to start Delta Rescue, the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, cats, and horses from the wilderness, and they provide their animals with shelter, love, safety, and a home. This dedication and everlasting love to animals is Leo's mission and legacy. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions from people like us. And if you want caring for these animals to be part of your legacy, speak with your estate planner because they're tax-saving estate planning benefits too. You can grow your estate while letting your love for animals live well into the future. Check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more and speak with an advisor. We call a dog man's best friend for a reason. You can help those who need it most. So please visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. Now, there's nothing that brings me more entertainment than seeing two despicable people team up for cringeworthy content. And that's what we're seeing with Thing 1 and Thing 2, Don Lemon and Kathy Griffin. Don Lemon, who's the most boring gay man in entertainment, and Kathy Griffin, whose career took a nosedive when she decided to hold up a severed head of President Trump covered in ketchup like an idiot. Well, they have sat around and decided that the 2024 election was stolen. They are the new election deniers. We have a clip. Let's take a look and then discuss.
I do not think he won in a free and fair election. How do you like that, lefties? Yeah, I said it. I'm Kathy Griffin, and I do not think Trump won in a free and fair election. I believe there was tampering. I don't know. I don't know if it was the Elon connection. I don't know if it was just a few good old boys in the South who didn't do what they accuse us of. If you remember Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, what they tend to accuse us of is what we find out they themselves did. So I know I'll take heat for this and people are going to say I'm crazy, but I've been called crazy before, Don. And I just, the more times
your gut is telling you something happened.
My gut is telling me that something was up with that.
You're not far off. I won't say that I disagree with you. But,
okay.
I'm an evidence person. I'd like to see the evidence. I think something was off. And especially, when someone said, oh, we've got this. And, how do you know that? How do you know we've got this? How do you know? Or I don't need your vote or anything like that. It's
this
a
will
little
be the
bit
last
odd.
election. We won't have any elections after this.
Vote for me and you won't have to vote again anymore. And also, as you said, every accusation is a confession.
Yeah.
I just lost brain cells listening to that clip. And Kathy Griffin wants to talk about tampering. There was tampering. The only person tampering is your plastic surgeon with your face, because Kathy Griffin, you are slowly morphing into Chucky. If Chucky was run over by an 18-wheeler and left to rot as a carcass on the side of the road for 37 years. That is how you look, Kathy Griffin. And that wig is insane. And that makeup, you look like a drag queen. I don't know if we're allowed to say this anymore. Might get canceled. Call Media Matters. I don't give a shit. Kathy Griffin, you look like a crossdresser. You literally look like a crossdresser. Can we still use that word anymore? I think Kathy Griffin is coming out as a transgender woman. So we applaud you, Kathy Griffin, for that. Don Lemon, he's continuing his descent into absurdity as well. If you remember, he said we should ban white men from the country. And my feeling is if we ban white men, who is Don Lemon going to sleep with? Because he's married to a white man and has a proclivity for white men. So as he said, every accusation is a confession. So these two are the new election deniers. They remind me of Rosie O'Donnell because she really contends that the 2024 election was stolen because she saw big crowds for Kamala. I saw big crowds turning out for Kamala Harris. Yeah, because they thought they were getting a Beyonce concert. They thought they were getting a Lady Gaga concert. They bamboozled and tricked them and bussed people in. That is what the Harris campaign did. They spent billions of dollars. People showed up thinking they were going to get like a Beyonce Destiny's Child reunion. Beyonce came out and she was like, Kamala Harris is gonna save democracy. And everyone's like, where's the freaking concert? Where's the music? Where's Cowboy Carter? Where's the little 1-2 step Watusi? I don't know. Where is it? Where's put a ring on it? If you like it, you should have put a ring on it. People showed up thinking they were getting Beyonce concerts. Rosie O'Donnell, Kathy Griffin, and Don Lemon, you trio of dumbasses. That's why there were crowds for Kamala Harris. Okay, you can get crowds to show up in Los Angeles if you're handing out free popsicles or sneakers. This is not some miracle that Kamala Harris had crowds at her events, okay? And you want to talk about crowds? Trump had massive crowds. He is the rally guy. He is known for his huge rallies. So Kathy Griffin, Don Lemon, we wish you well, actually. You guys are such an embarrassment, but we wish you well, and we wish you well, Kathy Griffin, in your transition. Well, we have to move on to someone else who is transitioning into a new phase in her life, and that is none other than Mother Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow. So according to the Daily Mail, Gwyneth Paltrow says she is done chasing perfection and she's letting herself go. Now, Gwyneth Paltrow, her version of letting herself go apparently is this. So she's ditching her ultra strict paleo diet and she has started eating bread, cheese, and pasta again. She has turned over a new leaf. Now, when we look at the pictures, this is not someone who has let themselves go. Okay, she looks like maybe she had too many almonds at breakfast. I don't know. She had too much bone broth last night. She is not someone who has let herself go, but I commend Gwyneth Paltrow. What I love about Gwyneth Paltrow is she is unapologetic in being a delusional Los Angeles rich Hollywood cyborg. She's like, you know what? I'm going to have my bone broth. I'm going to have an almond. I'm going to have a cashew. And oh my God, I'm so full. I'm so sick. That is who Gwyneth Paltrow is. But her saying she let herself go and she's like a size 000 is a joke to me. But you have to just own it because, like, unlike Meghan Markle, who wants to pretend to be this relatable woman, and Oprah does this too, Gwyneth Paltrow, she'll tell you she's not relatable. It wasn't Gwyneth Paltrow. I believe Gwyneth Paltrow is the one who said one time she would rather like shoot heroin than drink tap water. And she just owned it. She was completely unapologetic about it. Her brand Goop, I think she talks about, putting pine cones up her snatch to realign her chakras. Gwyneth Paltrow, she is just that out of touch LA Hollywood woman. And we found a clip of her from about 2 years ago discussing her strict diet. Let's take a look at the clip.
What's your wellness routine look like now?
I eat dinner early in the evening. I do a nice intermittent fast. I usually eat something about 12. And in the morning, I'll have some things that won't spike my blood sugar, right? So I have coffee, but I really like soup for lunch. I have bone broth for lunch a lot of the days. Try to do 1 hour of movement. So I'll either take a walk or I'll do Pilates or I'll do my Tracy Anderson. And then I get in the sauna. I dry brush and I get in the sauna. So I do my infrared sauna for 30 minutes. And then for dinner, I try to eat, according to paleo. So lots of vegetables. It's really important for me to support my detox.
She's supporting her detox. She's dry brushing. She's going in the infrared sauna. Don't we all have an infrared sauna in our houses? Can't you just run down to the neighborhood infrared sauna? Gwyneth Paltrow, I love you. Mother Goop. If I could just hang out with Gwyneth Paltrow for 24 hours, honestly, love her. I just love that she doesn't give a shit. She owns the fact that she's out of touch. The fact that her team is saying she's letting herself go, allegedly, when she still looks like a size 0 is iconic. Okay, Gwyneth Paltrow. So we wish you well. Good luck with the pine cones in your, snatch. And we pray for you and your bone broth. And it sounds like she's eating bread again. The last time I had bread about 5 minutes ago before I sat down to tape this damn show. But I love you guys. I have to say, that completes our episode. We had a great conversation with Zachary Levi. I was actually taken aback at how incredible he was, how passionate he was about all of these issues going on. And as for you guys, I can't wait to see you on Wednesday with more content. We have so many stories that are unfolding. The LA riots. We have the men and women's sports with Riley Gaines and Simone Biles. Maybe they'll sit down. President Trump, he's at Camp David. But thank you. And thanks for going to Apple and Spotify and giving us 5 stars and sending the show to your friends. I will see you on the next one. Bye.